Hey everyone! If you enjoyed this video, the full version is available on Patreon. I'll be uploading all my content there going forward.
Chapter 1 Ninja World, Konoha Village. As one of the 5 great ninja villages, or to put it bluntly, it is the first of the 5 great ninja villages. The scale of Konoha Village is naturally beyond doubt. In the corner of Konoha Village, there is such a special area. This is a private domain independent of the village, because it is the residence of the Hyuga family, one of the top wealthy families in Konoha Village. As a super family with one of the best names even in the entire ninja world, the status of the Hyuga family is naturally detached, so they have their own living area. There is even a gate at the edge of the family residence, usually guarded by members of the Hyuga clan. To enter the residence of the Hyuga clan, you need permission. It's almost like a country within a country. However, it is not only the Hyuga clan that has such an honor. There are several big families in Konoha Village, such as the Uchiha clan that is comparable to the Hyuga clan, and the Sarutobi clan headed by the current 3rd Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen, etc. Wait. Almost every family will be more or less taken care of by the village. At dusk in the afternoon of this day, there was an unremarkable small courtyard in a corner of the Hyuga clan's residence. The overgrown yard shows that the owner of the house has not repaired it for a long time, but this is not an empty garden. Just in front of an ordinary hut in the middle of the yard, on the corridor, a small boy is leaning sitting there facing the wall, looking at the messy yard in front of him in a daze. Are you kidding? I actually time traveled? No, it's reincarnation, right? The young man murmured to himself and revealed a very extraordinary message. It turns out that the boy is a member of the Hyuga clan, named Hyuga Setsuna. At the same time, he also has a mysterious and remarkable identity, that is, he actually has a memory of a previous life. That is to say, he was someone in the real world in his previous life, died for some reason, and was reincarnated into this world as a result. Originally, he hadn't awakened his past life memory, but because today is his 5th birthday, he was taken by the head of the Hyuga clan to implant a seal called Curse Mark, Caged Bird, because the process was too painful and he was directly stimulated. The brain nerves awakened the memory of the past life. So Hyuga Setsuna has remembered who he was in his previous life and realized what kind of world this is. Have I traveled to the world of Hokage? And I'm still from the Hyuga clan? Unfortunately, it's a branch house. By the way, why is it cataract, white eye, instead of Sharingan? Hyuga Setsuna suddenly complained wildly. It turns out that the reason why the Hyuga clan has a detached status is precisely because this clan has a special blood succession boundary, called white eyes. However, because the white eyes will make the pupils close to the color of the whites of the eyes, it is nicknamed cataracts by fans. Hyuga Setsuna felt speechless, because no matter how much the Hyuga clan boasted, but as a fan of Hokage in his previous life, he still felt that Sharingan was the stronger pupil technique. After all, Sharingan not only has insight that is not weaker than Bun, but also can copy other people's actions after reaching the 3-go Jade, and even so-called copy ninjutsu and so on. Moreover, Sharingan can also reach the Mangekyou level, which is incredible. Not only can it master the special pupil technique of each of the left and right eyes, but it can even unlock the power of Susanoo. Go straight to Gundam. Look at the white eyes again. There are only 3 kinds of pupil skills in Bun. One is the see-through eye, not the kind that sees through other people's clothes. It uses inorganic objects to find the hiding place of others, but it is uncontrollable, and it will even see the target's body. Through perspective, you can only see the opponent's chakra flowing in the meridians. In addition, Bun can also be far-sighted, and it is said that he can even see a distance of 10 kilometers. There is also a 360-degree viewing angle. It seems that you can't see the ground unless you lower your head to see through it. If there is no Sharingan gem in front, the white eye is still good, and there is no such troublesome eye-opening condition, and it will not have a huge side effect like Mangekyou Sharingan. But Sharingan can even evolve into Rinnegan, and even the Tsutsuki clan relies heavily on the power of Goju Rinnegan. In such a comparison, the supercilious eyes of the Hyuga clan are really insignificant. Hyuga Setsuna sighed, but it was a pity that he rolled his eyes. Now he obviously has no way to make a choice or change. He can't die again to try to reincarnate into the Uchiha family of Sharingan, right? The Uchiha clan seems to be all lunatics, which is not bad. But, in fact, the Hyuga clan is not a good person either, Hyuga Setsuna said, and couldn't help touching his forehead with his hand. Hyuga Setsuna, who is only 5 years old now, has a small body, small hands, and a small forehead. But looking at his smooth forehead, there was a green and complicated curse mark. That was the sealing technique called curse mark, caged bird. Hyuga Setsuna was pulled to have this seal implanted today just after her 5th birthday. As a branch house, once he is branded caged bird, it is like being put on shackles, and he can no longer fly to the sky to be free. Moreover, the function of the caged bird not only allows the clan to control the branch house, but a single thought can cause the caged bird to attack, causing the branch house to die of pain, and if it is more serious, it will directly burn the brain and become a vegetative state, or even die directly. Even when the branch house dies for some reason, caged bird will directly close the white eyes, so as to prevent the secrets of the Hyuga clan and the blood successor boundary white eyes from being peeped by outsiders. This is also the reason why the Hyuga family has survived for thousands of years. But in Hyuga Setsuna's view, it can't be recognized, because the Uchiha family doesn't have the caged bird, but looking at the whole Hokage story, how many outsiders got the Sharingan? Shimura Dance counts as 1, Uchiha Shin counts as 1, and the famous Hitaki Kakashi. Kakashi was given to him by Obito, and the other 2 were obtained after the Uchiha clan was wiped out. Uchiha letter is even Orochimaru's experimental subject, otherwise he would not be able to get the power of Sharingan. That is to say, if Uchiha had not been exterminated, no one except Kakashi could, and no one would dare to play Sharingan's idea. This is the proof of the self-confidence and strength of the top wealthy family, instead of relying on some caged bird to tie the hands and feet of their own people. One thing that needs to be explained here is that many people may not understand the difference between the main family of the Hyuga family and the branch house. In fact, there is no difference between the Zone family and the branch house. Essentially, the Zone family is the elder brother and sister of the branch house. The so-called Zone family and branch house were originally determined by the order of the children born. The first-born child is the clan house, and the later-born child is the branch house. That's all. Chapter 2. In the Hyuga family, there is actually no difference between the main family and the branch house. Even in the previous generation, for example, Hyuga Hayashi and Hyuga Hisashi brothers were twins, but because Hyuga Hayashi was born a few minutes earlier, he was the head house, and Hyuga Hisashi was the branch house. Some people may still remember that as a branch house, Hyuga Niji has a dead angle in his 360-degree perspective. But in fact, it appeared because of the seal of curse mark, caged bird, otherwise there would be no deadly corner. As a result, I have also become a branch house now. Hyuga Setsuna pinched his forehead a little harder, until now he couldn't help but shed a cold sweat when recalling the pain before. He never wanted to experience that kind of suffering again. What a pain it must have been, it even made him recall the memories of his previous life. Hyuga Setsuna has reason to doubt whether he has seen the revolving door of life, and only then recalls the memories of his previous life. Branch house? It's not just caged bird, but you also have to work for the main family. It's hard. Hyuga Setsuna leaned against the wall with his hands on the back of his head, and looked up at the eaves above his head. As a branch house, the treatment is actually very miserable, and even the so-called gentle fist method is not eligible to learn. Because the gentle fist method is a secret technique mastered by the clan, and it is passed on by word of mouth from clan to clan, even to the branch house it is a mystery that is not passed on to the outside world. Still take Hyuga Niji, the son of Hyuga Hisashi, as an example. Even as the nephew of Hyuga Hisashi, he still learned revolving heaven and 64 palms by himself in the end. Hyuga Setsuna is very self-aware. He neither has the background of Hyuga Niji, and even after his parents in this life died because of a certain mission, he doesn't even have relatives to count on. For him like this, even if he wants to eat and wait to die, it's an extravagant wish, right? However, as a time traveler, or a reincarnator, how can you do without a cheat? You say yes, the fusion system. As soon as Hyuga Setsuna finished speaking, a translucent dialogue quietly appeared in front of him in the midair that should have been empty. As if the operation page in the game appeared in front of him. It turned out that when Hyuga Setsuna awakened the memory of his previous life, he suddenly found that his soul seemed to be bound to a thing when he was reincarnated. That is an existence called fusion system. What should I say about the fusion system? It has the effect of merging everything in the world. For example, the same item can be fused into a higher level item. Even if it is still the same, the effect will be stronger. Even if different things can be forcibly fused into one of the high-end products. For example, if two kunao are fused, although only one kunao will be obtained in the end, the texture, firmness, sharpness, and mass density are twice as high as before. This system has a special fusion page, and almost anything can be put in it. For example, Hyuga Setsuna put 2 grasses in it to try before, and of course the result is a grass of grass plus 1. To be honest, it's a bit grassy. In fact, he wanted to try another fusion result, that is to say, if something has the possibility of higher evolution, it will be fused into an advanced state. For example, if one Guyo Sharingan is fused with one Guyo Sharingan, it will become a Guyo Sharingan. At least that's what Hyuga Setsuna now speculates should be the case. If this is the case, then isn't there some possibility of evolution for the white eyes of the Hyuga clan? For example, the so-called pure eyes? Or is it Tenseigan? But he found that it didn't seem that simple. At least he has no extra white eyes for him to try except his own. You can't dig out an eyeball yourself, and then combine 2 eyeballs into one, right? Even if he could synthesize a Tenseigan, he wouldn't do it. Speaking of which, my attribute is really low. Hyuga Setsuna looked at the dialog box in front of him, which was his attribute panel. Name, Hyuga Setsuna. Age, 5 years old. Gender, male, this is certainly no doubt. Attributes, physique, 5, generally, the highest for ordinary people is 10. Strength, 6, standard, up to 10 for normal people. Dexterity, 4, ordinary, up to 10 for ordinary people. Spirit, 4, ordinary, up to 10 for ordinary people. Intelligence, 8, standard, the highest is 10 for ordinary people. The effects brought about by these attribute values refer to strength, which naturally refers to the strength of Hyuga Setsuna. Based on the fact that each point of strength is 10 kattis of strength, it represents the maximum strength of Hyuga Setsuna's single hand. However, it is not so easy to exert the real full strength, because the human body is very fragile. If you exert too much strength, your body will be the first to be unable to hold on. The most common cause is muscle strain. And it depends on the physical attributes. Each point of physique is calculated according to the strength it can bear. A point of physique can withstand a blow of 10 pounds of force, as well as various factors that affect physical fitness, which also includes the body's self-recovery. As for agility, it refers to the value of how many meters can be moved per second. Hyuga Setsuna, whose agility value is 4, can be understood as running 4 meters per second. This is already exaggerated. After all, he is only 5 years old. However, if you want to explode at full speed every second, or even explode at a faster speed, you must consider the attributes of strength and physique. The strength attribute determines the burst speed, and the physique attribute determines the durability of the speed. As for spiritual and intellectual attributes, it can be understood that spirit represents magic resistance. In terms of this world, it means the strength of mental power, which can be considered as resistance to illusions and the strength of illusions. At the same time, it will also affect the quality and quantity of chakra, because chakra seems to be formed by extracting some kind of power from the cells of the body, combined with the so-called spiritual power. Intelligence refers to the speed of understanding things, the speed of response to emergencies, and so on. Although Hyuga Setsuna is only 5 years old, after all, he is also a child of a ninja and a member of the Hyuga clan, so although his attributes cannot meet the highest standards of ordinary people, because those so-called highest standards for ordinary people are based on adults. And compared with agility, if you can exceed 11, or even 12 or 13, you can already become a track and field athlete. So the attributes of Hyuga Setsuna are actually not low. Chapter 3. There's a lot more to be said about converged systems. For example, the fusion system and the store system are divided into 5 categories in total, namely groceries, medicine, weapons, equipment, and abilities. The main one is the ability store. Hyuga Setsuna found that the ability store not only contains almost all body skills, ninjutsu, and illusion, but also various blood succession limit, secret skills, etc. are also listed. Even things called blood can be bought. For example, the white-eyed blood of the Hyuga family, the Sharingan blood of the Uchiha family next door, and so on. That's why Hyuga Setsuna is so calm, because he may not be able to have a pair of Sharingan in the future. However, one thing that disappointed Hyuga Setsuna was that he thought he could find Scion blood. If he could become a Super Scion, wouldn't he be invincible? As a result, he found that there were only those skills and blood in the Hokage world. It seems that you can't cheat too much. And if you want to get those good things, you must have enough reward points, which are the only currency of the fusion system. If you want to get reward points, you can only get them through the task system. The task system is divided into 3 categories. One is the daily task, which will be released once a day. Completing the task will give you a fixed reward of 1000 points. The second is the reward task, which is released once a month. The difficulty of the task is much higher, but the corresponding rewards are also very rich. The last is the trigger task, that is to say, a certain task will be triggered randomly, and after completion, you will get super rich rewards. In addition to these, the fusion system also gives a personal space, which will be sized according to Hyuga Setsuna's total attributes, and the space is his total attributes multiplied by 1 in cubic meters. Now is not the time to think about these things. Although I have awakened my past life memory and have this system. But I am only a 5-year-old child after all. Even though he was already an adult in his previous life, due to the limitations of his current body, it is really difficult to have the ability to be independent immediately. Just look at this yard. Since his parents in this life died in the mission, he has no one to take care of him. It is a miracle that he can survive to this day. Let's look at the appearance of Hyuga Setsuna again. I feel pity for that thin body that has been lacking nutrition all the year round. I saw Hyuga Setsuna with long hair and a hair rope tied at the end of the hair. It can be said that the long hair reaches the waist. It turns out that this is a very common style of the Hyuga family. Basically, the Hyuga family, regardless of gender, will have such elegant black long straight hair. Don't even look at Hyuga Setsuna's house, who is still wearing a nice white yukata. If it weren't for the poor surrounding yard, it would be mistaken for some noble young master. And because of her young age and malnutrition, her petite facial features look like a girl, especially those white eyes looking up at the eaves without spirit, which is more pitiful. Poor sense of sight. This is Hyuga Setsuna, a cute boy who looks like a girl. As for his pupils, it turned out that even if the white eyes of the Hyuga clan were not opened, they were born white. Unlike the Sharingan of the Uchiha family, the abnormality will only appear after the eyes are opened, and they usually have black pupils like everyone else. And just when Hyuga Setsuna is still struggling with what to do with his life in the future, and what to eat, or what to eat tonight. Dang dang! Suddenly, someone knocked on the gate of the yard. Hyuga Setsuna wondered, who would come to her house. Curious, Hyuga Setsuna got up and put on a pair of clogs on the steps below the corridor, then went to the courtyard gate and opened it. Standing in front of the door was an adult much taller than Hyuga Setsuna, who also had long hair tied with a knot at the end. However, he was wearing smart clothes and Konoha Shinobi's forehead protector. Hyuga Setsuna's heart moved, and he knew without thinking that the Zongjia would definitely not become a ninja, because it was too dangerous, and only the branch house would go out and work hard. After all, it doesn't hurt to die, and there is no risk of losing the secret of Bun. So it's Hyuga Hisashi-sama. I'm sorry. Hyuga Setsuna looked up at the man's appearance, then lowered his head immediately, and called him sir. It turned out that he was Hyuga Hisashi. As the child of the head of the Hyuga clan, he became a branch house because he was born a few minutes later than his twin brother Hyuga Hisashi. Because of his special background, he has a high status even in the branch house, and there is a faint tendency to be the leader of the branch house. But the current Hyuga Hisashi and Hyuga Hayashi are not too old, and they are only in their early 20s, not to mention that the eldest lady Hyuga Hinata is far from being born. In fact, Hyuga Setsuna also reacted with hindsight. The time he traveled seems to be a little earlier than the beginning of the plot. Because he only recalled the memory of his previous life today, plus the system, and curse mark, caged bird and so on. So Hyuga Setsuna hasn't fully figured out the situation yet. But at least one thing he knows, that is, his family is an inconspicuous small family. It is not a small family, after all, it is also a member of the Hyuga family, but it is insignificant in the Hyuga family. So their family has nothing to do with Hyuga Hisashi, and even Hyuga Hisashi and the patriarch's family. So how did this Hyuga Hisashi find himself here? Hyuga Setsuna, I'm actually here to inform you that the family has decided to ask you to participate in the entrance examination for the ninja school. Hyuga Hisashi explained his intentions. Entrance examination? It turns out that there is a ninja school in Konoha Village. The full name is Konoha Shinobi School, which was created by second Hokage Senju Tobirama. The purpose is to hope that through the cultivation of ninja schools, more children can be sent to battlefield. It was a more chaotic and cruel era, and even children had to go to war. The existence of the ninja school can help those innocent children have more chances to survive. But Hyuga Setsuna, as a member of the Hyuga clan, logically does not need to go to ninja school. What's more, the Hyuga family has mastered the blood succession limit of Bun, and the ninja school can't teach them. The Hyuga family only needs to practice the gentle fist method with Bun. But Hyuga Setsuna didn't doubt anything, and continued to lower his head, agreeing, I see. He is very self-aware, he is just a mere branch house. How could he have the opportunity and qualification to learn the gentle fist method? Even if it is the most basic and low-level gentle fist method, it still depends on the family's face. Learn, you can only learn if you learn, and you are nothing if you don't learn. What's more, this is an order from the Zone family, not to ask for your opinion, but to inform you. Chapter 4. Hyuga Hisashi turned and left after conveying the order, but before leaving, he couldn't help but take a deep look at the child. Hyuga Setsuna was still bowing his head in front of the door, thinking of something. And Hyuga Hisashi couldn't help but let out a silent sigh. He knew the child because today was the day Hyuga Setsuna was taken to implant the caged bird, which was evident from the mark on the child's forehead. And even if Hyuga Hisashi is the second son of this patriarch, since he became a branch house, his status has been different. So not only Hyuga Hisashi had caged bird implanted as a child, but he was not qualified to know what caged bird was and how caged bird was implanted. The Hyuga family is such a cold and heartless family. Once the division between the main family and the branch house is decided, it is so hierarchical. While walking, Hyuga Hisashi stopped suddenly. After thinking about it, he turned his head and walked back. Hyuga Setsuna was about to raise his head, still thinking in his mind, school? In fact, it happened that he wanted to go to school too. Whether the other Hyuga children need to go to school or not, at least he does. Because he had just awakened the memory of his previous life, only to find that his parents in this life were gone. Although it just happened to avoid the difficulty of substituting the current identity, I don't know how to face the embarrassment of those two people. But what made Hyuga Setsuna even more embarrassing was that the parents in this life seemed to have nothing but left some property and a part of the pension for themselves. What is chakra? What happened to the seal? What about kunai throwing technique? Not to mention ninjutsu and gentle fist. He can't do it at all. What are you kidding? Not to mention the start of hell difficulty, at least it is the highest difficulty, right? Is it so difficult at the beginning? Hyuga Setsuna thought that if she could learn something at school, it would be pretty good. At this moment, Hyuga Setsuna noticed that Hyuga Hisashi had gone and returned, and quickly lowered his head again. Hyuga Hisashi had already returned to him, looked at this well-behaved, sensible or rather cautious child, and said, "It's a reminder to you. If you want to pass the examination, at least you need to show that you have the qualifications to become a ninja. For example, you can use ninjutsu or genjutsu. Although others can recognize you as a child of the Hyuga clan, but at your current age, you should not have opened your eyes, let alone use gentle fist, so physical jutsu is not acceptable. But I don't know ninjutsu and genjutsu, including gentle fist." Hyuga Setsuna's eyes lit up, and he quickly raised his head and said, "What should I do? If I can't enroll, the Zongjia won't blame me, right?" At this time, Hyuga Setsuna's cleverness and chicken thief are displayed. He heard what Hyuga Hisashi meant. Did he want to help himself? Regardless of Hyuga Hisashi's intentions, at least he won't miss this opportunity. So Hyuga Setsuna honestly told the truth that he didn't know anything, and then pointed out that this was an order from the clan. Hyuga Hisashi frowned as expected, but he didn't think this kid was very scheming. After all, he is only a 5-year-old child. He only thought that Hyuga Setsuna was worried about being blamed by the clan, but he did not think that Hyuga Setsuna was actually plotting against him as an adult. After thinking about it for a while, Hyuga Hisashi narrowed his eyes slightly, and said to himself at the moment when he opened them again, "White eyes, open." Crackling. Around the corners of Hyuga Hisashi's eyes, blue veins suddenly appeared and bulged, which is the change of eyes widening. Unlike Sharingan's changes in the eyes, the opening of the white eyes is the same as usual, only the blue veins around the corners of the eyes will appear after the eyes are opened. In fact, it should be caused by the flow of chakra in the meridians, right? Regardless of that, Hyuga Hisashi rolled his eyes at this moment, and glanced up and down at Hyuga Setsuna in front of him. Hyuga Setsuna's heart moved, knowing everything about Bion's pupil technique, he guessed that the other party should be looking through chakra in his body. It is very convenient to see through the chakra flow in the opponent's body directly. Not only can you see whether the opponent is performing illusions, but also can easily see through the ordinary clone technique, and grasp more information through the flow of chakra. And Hyuga Hisashi observed Hyuga Setsuna, closed his eyes after a while, nodded and said, "Your chakra is not bad, at least it should be in the middle for children of this age, but there is no problem in passing the entrance examination. But don't you know how to do it? This is more troublesome. After all, you will learn it when you go to school, so I will teach you a clone technique in advance. It is not the shadow clone technique, but the most basic ordinary clone technique. By consuming a certain amount of chakra to create a clone that has no actual effect, it can only serve as a cover-up." Hyuga Setsuna's eyes are wide open. Is it possible to get into ninjutsu so soon? Although it is only the most basic clone technique, it is not the shadow clone technique that he wants more. But even so, it's ninjutsu. For Hyuga Setsuna, who has just awakened the memory of her past life and is also a fan of Hokage in her previous life, don't expect too much. Hyuga Hisashi looked at Hyuga Setsuna, who accidentally showed his true emotion, and couldn't help but raise the corner of his mouth slightly. In fact, he has heard about this child and knows that he lost his parents before, and now he is not only implanted with curse mark, caged bird, but also has to participate in the assessment as a Hyuga clan when the ninja school is about to start. After all, the Hyuga family is always a family of Konoha Village. Not all families can be like Uchiha, and their family only needs to be responsible for the work of the Konoha Guard. Even if it is the Hyuga clan, people have to contribute, and they have to send people to serve the village as ninjas every once in a while. Otherwise, why should Konoha Village bless you? The branch house is responsible for completing dangerous tasks as a ninja instead of the blessed clan who cannot, will not, become a ninja, and will not easily risk leaving the village. This is the mission of Hyuga branch house. Shaking his head, Hyuga Hisashi stopped thinking about these things, looked at Hyuga Setsuna, who was already eager to try, and began to teach him about the seal of clone technique. Chapter 5. After all, clone technique is only the most basic ninjutsu. It is not an advanced ninjutsu like shadow clone technique, and it is not even as difficult as other types of clone technique such as water body technique. This is just one of the most basic 3 body technique, the other 2 are body replacement technique and transformation technique. Therefore, it is not very difficult to learn this technique. You can even learn it as long as you have the chakra qualification and master the order of seal formation. However, if you want to create more clones with the least amount of chakra, you need some control over chakra. However, clone technique is meaningless for us to roll our eyes. You will understand after you open your eyes. This is just for you to pass the assessment smoothly. Don't pay too much attention to it, Hyuga Hisashi also commented. After all, it is only the most basic clone technique, and the meaning is too low. Hyuga Setsuna also understood what Hyuga Hisashi meant. Only the shadow clone technique has a physical effect because it will divide half of the body's chakra equally, and it can even transfer the memory back to the body, which can also be used for additional practice. It is equivalent to doubling the experience value. For example, if 10 shadow clones do one thing, it is equivalent to 10 times the efficiency. However, it should be noted that because shadow clone will transfer memory and experience back to the main body, it will also inherit the feeling of fatigue. Ordinary people cannot bear such consumption, including chakras consumption is also very large. At the same time, because the ordinary clone technique has no physical effect, you can tell whether it is true or not with just a quick glance, and you can completely ignore it. That's what Hyuga Hisashi means, ordinary clone technique can't fool the eyes. But Hyuga Setsuna didn't take it seriously. After Hyuga Hisashi taught him the sequence of making madara in detail and showed him the gestures of making madara, he started to try it enthusiastically. As one of the most basic ninjutsu, there are not many clone technique printed, only 3, the order is, Wei, Si, Yin. It's just because Hyuga Setsuna is the first time to make madaras, including this life, before he awakened his memory, he had never learned the gestures of madaras. After all, he is a child of the Hyuga clan, so he will pay more attention to the training of physical skills, and forget about not seal and ninjutsu. So Hyuga Setsuna stumbled and almost twisted his fingers several times in the middle, but fortunately Hyuga Hisashi did not leave in a hurry, but patiently corrected his mistakes several times. Finally, Hyuga Setsuna was able to successfully complete the 3 seals. Clone technique. As Hyuga Setsuna shouted excitedly, only to hear a bang, 2 white smoke rose from his left and right sides, and then 2 other Hyuga Setsuna appeared. Both clones look exactly like Hyuga Setsuna, which is his clone after all. Standing in the middle, Hyuga Setsuna glanced left and right, revealing a sense of wonder. At this time, Hyuga Hisashi reached out and touched the 2 clones lightly, and the 2 clones immediately disappeared into white smoke. It should be noted that once the clone is attacked, it will disappear. Only the shadow clone technique can barely survive. After all, this is just the most basic clone technique, Hyuga Hisashi continued to warn Hyuga Setsuna in a guiding tone. Hyuga Setsuna's heart moved, and he asked subconsciously, shadow clone technique? What is that? Can I learn it? Don't aim too high, unexpectedly Hyuga Hisashi reprimanded in a serious tone. Hyuga Setsuna shrank her head, cursing herself for getting carried away. Although he is eager to get the shadow clone technique immediately, after all Hokage fans will know a secret, that is, the shadow clone of the shadow clone technique can be cheated, as mentioned earlier, can increase the efficiency and speed of cultivation. Think about it, for example, Hyuga Setsuna is not proficient or used to the hand gestures of Knot Seal, but what if shadow clone can be used instead of the body to practice? Even if the main body is doing other things, shadow clone can always practice. It is equivalent to having an automatic practice plug-in on all the time. More importantly, as long as there are enough chakras, the number of shadow clones can also increase. What if 1,000 shadow clones, or even 10,000 shadow clones do one thing? 1 time is equal to 10,000 times. This cheat level feature alone is enough to make people salivate. But, what does Hyuga Hisashi have to do with him? He was so carried away. Hyuga Hisashi only taught him the clone technique to help him complete the tasks given by the clan, and he has no obligation to help you. Hyuga Setsuna, don't think that this world is the same as the previous life, and everyone is good. This is a world that cannibalize people, Hyuga Setsuna reminded herself inwardly. It's definitely a high-stakes world, because it's a world where people die almost all the time. Suddenly, the voice of Hyuga Hisashi came again in front of him. Hyuga Setsuna, don't think that shadow clone technique and clone technique are the same thing, it is an advanced ninjutsu that does not belong to the same level at all. At your current age and chakra, just one shadow clone technique is enough to kill you. Hyuga Hisashi's expression was very serious, and he continued to warn Hyuga Setsuna, maybe you don't understand what chakra is now, but you will learn it after you enter school. Chakra is the power extracted from your cells, and it is your life. Once chakra is consumed too much, it can be fatal. Hyuga Setsuna's heart moved, and only then did he understand what Hyuga Hisashi meant by being so ambitious. In fact, in retrospect, for example, Hitaki Kakashi in the original work always fell ill because of too little chakra, or because chakra was consumed too much. It seems that although chakra can greatly improve the strength of ninjas, if chakra is consumed too much, it will also seriously threaten the lives of ninjas. I see, Hyuga Setsuna continued to bow her head and agreed. In any case, Hyuga Hisashi is doing it for his own good. Hyuga Setsuna, who has a more mature mind, naturally wrote it down silently, and will avoid problems in this regard in the future. Hyuga Hisashi nodded in satisfaction, thought for a while and took out a handful of kunao from the ninja tool bag behind him and handed it over. This is a gift for you, it's a reward for completing the clone technique practice for the first time. I also hope that you can pass tomorrow's assessment smoothly. So you're going to take the ninja school assessment tomorrow? Did you come to tell him today? Hyuga Setsuna was a little dumbfounded, those things from the Zong family were really nothing. Do you have the ability to tell me tomorrow, or the day after tomorrow? Just don't participate. But what can he do? Why can't we just accept kunao silently and wait for tomorrow? Chapter 6. After that Hyuga Hisashi left, he already took extra care of Hyuga Setsuna. Again, since the death of his parents in this life, Hyuga Setsuna has no relatives in this world and in the Hyuga clan. Don't feel exaggerated, his parents are also branch house, and his parents' parents are also branch house. As long as one generation becomes a branch house, the descendants will all be branch houses, and there will be no possibility or opportunity to become a branch house. This also leads to the fact that branch houses generally do not take the initiative to give birth to too many children. Do they want their children to be slaves at birth? Therefore, the number of people in the branch house is actually not too many, which has led to the fact that until now, as long as 2 or more children are born in the main family, the children born later will be sent to the branch house. Hyuga Setsuna's grandparents and grandparents also lived in branch houses, so they only have 1 child. Later, Hyuga Setsuna's parents were both branch houses, and only 1 child was Hyuga Setsuna. So by the time of Hyuga Setsuna's generation, there were no so-called relatives. But that's fine, said Hyuga Setsuna, after seeing off Hyuga Hisashi, closed the courtyard door and returned to her small courtyard. After all, he is not a real 5-year-old child. After awakening the memory of his previous life, he feels that this kind of life experience is more relaxed and comfortable. It's just that when he glanced at the overgrown yard, he could only sigh, "Let's clean it up later when we have time." Shaking his head, Hyuga Setsuna returned to the house along a path that had been trodden through the weeds. Then it's time to think about what's next. Let's not think about tomorrow's ninja school assessment. After all, he has already learned the clone technique. According to Hyuga Hisashi, as long as he shows that he has the qualifications of a ninja, he can pass it smoothly. So what is Hyuga Setsuna to consider? Based on the plot of the original novel, since Hyuga Hisashi appeared, and looking at his current age, as expected, it must be in that period now. Hyuga Setsuna didn't know what to think of, showing a wry smile. Because he thought of a possibility. Hyuga Hisashi is the father of Hyuga Niji, and Hyuga Niji is one of the future Konoha 12, and Uzumaki Naruto, who is the protagonist, is also one of them. In other words, the next generation of talent is the era of the official plot and the protagonist's debut. Is it too early for me to time travel? More importantly, before the protagonist was born, it was actually in a special era. That is, the Third Ninja War. Hyuga Setsuna narrowed his eyes slightly, and his face became cloudy. If his guess is correct, he has come to a remarkable era. After all, Hyuga Hisashi signed the so-called peace agreement with Konoha Village at the end of the Third Ninja World War, and intends to when the Ninja War was completely ended. He died because of the conspiracy initiated by Cloud Shinobi Village's Peeping Eyes. In other words, the end of the Third Ninja War is after the death of Hyuga Hisashi. And now, it should be at some point before the start of the Third Ninja World War. Will a war break out at any time? And with my current status and identity as a branch house, as well as the attitude of the sect towards the branch house, once a war breaks out, I will inevitably be sent to the battlefield, and I will definitely not be able to escape of. Hyuga Setsuna grinned with a cold and sarcastic sneer. So he saw through it earlier, this is a world that eats people. Although I have the system and many good things in the ability store, I can't count on it in a short period of time. Because I don't have reward points. The tasks are too cheating. Hyuga Setsuna cursed secretly while opening the mission system. There is only one task on the top, and it shows, Daily Task, go and say hello to 3rd Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen. The task is completed, and the reward point is 1000. If the task fails, there is no penalty. If this is a game, or a game called Hokage, it's easy to understand, but it's normal to go to 3rd Hokage to say hello. But this is reality, at least for Hyuga Setsuna who died in the previous life and now ascended to this world, this is his real life. And as a mere branch house of the Hyuga family, what qualifications does he have to talk to the boss of Konoha Village? Even if you go to say hello and ask for a good qualification, you are not qualified. And in fact, he also triggered a trigger task before. In fact, when the fusion system was activated together with his awakening past life memory, he released a trigger task. Trigger mission, Rebellion against the Hyuga clan, escape from the caged bird ceremony. The mission is completed, and the reward point is 1 million. If the mission fails, there is no penalty, note, but you may be killed by the Hyuga clan, please note this. What do you say? What do you say? Not to mention the state of Hyuga Setsuna who was in pain at the time, but with his strength of only 5 years old and his ability to know nothing, how could he escape? It can only be said that this task system is not an ordinary cheat. Even if you want to save some reward points to buy good things in the ability store, it is an extravagant hope. Provide a reward task, complete the instructions of the Hyuga clan, and successfully pass the ninja school assessment. The task is completed, and the reward point is 50,000. If the task fails, there is no penalty. Trigger the task and enroll with the genius boy Hotaki Kakashi. The task is completed, and the reward point is 100,000. Suddenly, just when Hyuga Setsuna was crazily complaining about the cheating mission system, the mission system released 2 more missions. In addition to the unreliable daily tasks, a bounty task and a trigger task were released respectively. What surprised Hyuga Setsuna even more? Hotaki, white beer, 50% off? No. Kakashi? Is that Kakashi? Hyuga Setsuna was stunned. Because he had just awakened the memory of his previous life, and in his previous memory, he had never walked out of the family residence, at least he hadn't wandered around the village. Therefore, it is difficult for Hyuga Setsuna to find a counterpart in his reincarnation era, that is to say, he can only speculate that the Third Ninja World War may break out at any time. This is still speculated by the time of Hyuga Hisashi's death. Hyuga Hisashi, I thank you. But suddenly, knowing the information about Kakashi from the side, let Hyuga Setsuna understand a little bit. And that guy is a genius. It looks like he graduated at the age of 5, right? He entered school at the age of 5 and graduated at the age of 5, so he is also 5 years old? Kakashi and I are the same generation. Oh, Obito, I don't want to give you my heart out. Chapter 7. Through the information revealed by the mission system, Hyuga Setsuna finally knows what period he is in. If he guessed correctly, then he should be of the same age as Kakashi, even they are the same age. Even the mission requirement is for him to complete the goal of enrolling with Kakashi. And it's very generous, the 2 tasks add up to 150,000 reward points. In such a comparison, daily tasks are nothing, Hyuga Setsuna grinned. Not only are the daily tasks the most demanding, but the rewards are also the lowest. It's just cheating. This is not in the game, you can just run to say hello to Tang Tang Hokage casually, and it's really just a greeting. If he wants to do that, I'm afraid he won't need Hokage's guards or Enbu to trouble him, not even the clan. I will spare myself. You ran to Hokage just to say hello? Who are you playing with? Are you talking about 150,000 reward points? You can buy a lot of good things. Hyuga Setsuna was moved again, and the task system dialog box in front of him quietly changed, and the ability store page of the store system was expanded. During Setsuna, a variety of good things appeared in front of Hyuga Setsuna. For example, bloodlines, the most advanced of which are the bloodlines of the Tsutsuki family. This point is naturally beyond doubt. It can be said that the entire ninja world and the origin of ninjas are handed down from Tsutsuki Kagaya. Because there were no ninjas in the original ninja world, including humans did not have chakra. It is because Tsutsuki Kagaya ate the chakra fruit, and then gave birth to twins, and then the sage of 6 paths founded ninja, and shared chakra with others. Only then did ninjas appear. Moreover, the strength and blood of the Tsutsuki family are not comparable to human beings. It is no exaggeration to say that the Tsutsuki family is the heavenly man, that is, the so-called god. Even Tsutsuki Yui, who is known as the Sage of 6 Paths, is just a child of Tsutsuki Kagaya, and even he is only half of the blood. Tsutsuki Yui and his younger brother Tsutsuki Hamura are added together to complete Tsutsuki. Visible Tsutsuki's strength. However, the number of reward points required to obtain this power is also astronomical, and Hyuga Setsuna swiped it away without even looking at it. In addition to the blood of the Tsutsuki clan, there are many excellent bloodlines, including the blood of the Hyuga clan and the Uchiha clan, as well as the Senju clan and the Uzumaki clan. Almost all bloodlines with names and surnames with some blood inheritance boundaries or family secrets, such as the Inyazuka family, their bloodline genes are quite special. It can be said that their family is closer to beasts than humans over there. It also makes their five senses better than ordinary people. Not to mention other families. In addition to bloodlines, some blood inheritance boundaries can also be mastered separately, such as the Ice attribute Chakra nature transformation, Explosion style attribute, and Landong attribute, etc. It's just that these are also very valuable, often worth hundreds of thousands or hundreds of thousands of reward points. In addition to the attributes of these bloodlines and blood succession boundaries, it also includes all the three basic ninja skills of Taijutsu, Ninjutsu, and Illusion, which are also the three major fighting systems of ninjas. For example, in Taijutsu, there is the Gentle Fist method of the Hyuga family, Konoha Fluid Jutsu, and some other ninja villages who are good at Taijutsu. Of course, the most famous 8 inner gates will not be missing, which is a trick that almost kicked out a big solution. However, 8 inner gates is 8 inner gates, and Yagai is Yagai. It is not that after learning 8 inner gates, you will master Yagai. In fact, many moves, body skills, that Might Guy cooperates with 8 inner gates are developed by himself, or the completion of cultivation has nothing to do with 8 inner gates itself. And it should be noted that although 8 inner gates is a forbidden technique, the so-called forbidden technique is not classified separately. In fact, forbidden technique itself is just a common technique, but the classification of forbidden technique is quite special. Generally, there are 3 rules listed as forbidden technique, which are: first, the technique that has serious self-injury, that is to say, the technique that will cause harm to the performer is the forbidden technique. For example, the unfinished wind-style spiral shuriken in the original book is the forbidden technique, and the multiple shadow clone techniques will cause a great burden to ordinary people, so it is also the forbidden technique. Article 2, Art that violates ethics and morals. For example, impure world reincarnation, although there is no harm to oneself, but it is disrespectful to fool, play with, the dead, so it is also forbidden technique. The third one is a technique that is too powerful and may cause harm to innocent people around. This is not an example. In short, in the ability store, forbidden technique is not classified separately, so it is divided into 4 categories in total, namely blood, ninjutsu, body technique, and illusion. Then there will also be some small types that branch out under these, such as sealing. Among them, there is a technique that Hyuga Setsuna is very concerned about, called curse mark, caged bird. That's right, the same curse mark, caged bird that Hyuga Setsuna herself was implanted with. As for why Hyuga Setsuna cares about this technique, it doesn't mean that he also wants to implant this technique into those guys in the sect, nor does he want to use this technique to control others. In fact, he didn't want to take revenge on others, but wanted to find a solution to his own curse. Although I don't know what a caged bird is, and naturally I don't know how to caged bird. But as long as you learn and master this technique directly through the store system, you can understand the principle, and maybe there is even a way to undo the technique. That's what Hyuga Setsuna intended. He didn't want to be bound by the caged bird for the rest of his life. In that case, if one day he even wanted to leave Konoha Village and leave the Hyuga clan, wouldn't he be cleared by the clan through the caged bird? Leave? That's right, he didn't think about working for Konoha Village. After all, he was unfamiliar with it and had no sense of belonging. If I have to say it, the only reason for him to stay may be his own eldest lady Hyuga Hinata, right? But the eldest lady is not born yet, and Kakashi, who is the same age as him, is only 5 years old. Thinking about it this way, Hyuga Setsuna is about to cry. It's a tragedy. Just think about the age difference between Kakashi and Naruto, and you can know the age difference between him and the eldest lady. It might take another 10 years to wait for the young miss to be born. The calculation is very simple. the age difference between the young lady and her father Hyuga Hayashi should be 10 years, and Hyuga Hayashi and Hyuga Hisashi brothers may be exactly 20 years old this year. Am I 15 years older than Missy? Do I still have a chance? Before that, to get curse mark, Caged Bird, you need a full 300,000 bonus points. Chapter 8. There is no book for one night, and the next morning is early. Hyuga Setsuna woke up very early. He didn't forget that he still had important things to do today. Obviously I'm only 5 years old. In the peaceful age of the previous life, it was the age when cats disliked dogs and ignored them. Maybe it's a bit early to go to kindergarten. Good guy, I have to complete the tasks assigned by the family here. Hyuga Setsuna sighed. As he said earlier, this is a world that eats people, and even as a child, he has to bear many burdens. It is no exaggeration to say that once the Third Ninja World War breaks out, he will also go to the battlefield. And there is no such thing as protecting children here. Children born in the war years are the most unlucky, because they will be used as cannon fodder, or even bait to explore traps. Even first Hokage's grandson, Noeki, can die, let alone someone else. I'd better stop thinking about unrealistic things. Now I have only one thing to do, and that is how to live. After thinking about these things, Hyuga Setsuna got dressed alone and was about to go out. He also tied a band around his forehead. Let me declare in advance that he didn't plan to completely treat his life as a kid. Mainly to cover the curse mark, Caged Bird imprint on the forehead. He himself doesn't really matter, after all, even if it's covered up, it's still impossible to avoid his identity as a branch house. What's more, he doesn't rely on his appearance for a living. It was Hyuga Hisashi who reminded him yesterday. It seems that the Hyuga clan doesn't want too many people outside to know about Caged Bird. Do you dare to do it or not? Hypocritical. So Hyuga Setsuna improvised a cloth band to wrap around his forehead, and walked out of the house. Walk through the weeds in the yard, push open the gate and go outside. Hyuga Setsuna didn't even bother to lock the courtyard door, because the fusion system also has a personal space, and the size of the space is the cubic meter multiplied by his attribute sum. So he has already put all the valuables at home into it, and that is the safest safe. Going out of the house to the main street of the family residence, Hyuga Setsuna found that the Hyuga clan's residence is very large, and there is a wide road in the middle that divides the entire residence into two. The two sides that seem to be clearly separated are the distinction between the Zong family and the branch house. The Zong family's residences on that side are all beautiful and big houses, while this side is much simpler. Even the Hyuga people in 2s and 3s on the street are spontaneously distinguishing themselves from each other. Without exception, the people in the branch house used something to cover the curse marks on their foreheads. If they were already ninjas, they would wear forehead protectors, and if they were not ninjas, they would wear white bandages. Looking at the adults of the Zong family who happened to meet on the other side, they showed foreheads that were as smooth as a mirror. Hyuga Setsuna snorted coldly in his heart, big bald forehead, who cares? But he didn't dare to say it out. He quickened his pace and wanted to leave the family residence as soon as possible because he didn't want to cause trouble. As a result, what surprised Hyuga Setsuna was that no one actually looked at him during the whole process, as if this person did not exist. It seemed that he was thinking too much. It's a little uncomfortable instead, Hyuga Setsuna frowned, and finally walked through the gate of the residence to the Konoha village outside the family residence. Just when he had just taken the first step, a burst of noisy and lively voices rushed towards Setsuna. It was clearly early in the morning, but the village was already buzzing with people. And in sharp contrast with the family residence behind, the residence of the Hyuga clan was very quiet, and it was too quiet, even to the point of death. That depressing feeling made Hyuga Setsuna very uncomfortable. But when he stood on the street in the village, he suddenly felt as if the colors around him became bright and full of life. It's as if Hyuga's family is already a dying old man, while the village is like a vibrant teenager. Shaking his head, Hyuga Setsuna put aside the thought in his heart, these have nothing to do with him, whether it is the Hyuga clan or the village, he is not qualified to judge, let alone change anything. I'll find a way to complete the entrance examination. Having said that, although I'm going to school, I don't know where the school is. Hyuga Setsuna suddenly realized that he seemed to have forgotten to ask one thing, where is the school? Although the ninja school is one of the famous scenes, he didn't come out many times before he awakened his memory. As a person in Konoha Village, he didn't know much about his village. Well now, what should we do now? Hey, whose family are you from? Why did you run outside? Suddenly, a gentle woman's voice came from behind. Hyuga Setsuna turned his head to look, and found that the other party also had a pair of near white eyes, so he knew without guessing that he must be a member of the Hyuga clan, same clan. There was more than one person on the other side, it was a young mother who was only about 25 years old, and she was leading a child who was about the same age as Hyuga Setsuna and was also Hyuga's child. When Hyuga Setsuna looked at the other mother and child, the child opposite was also looking at Hyuga Setsuna with strange eyes. My name is Hyuga Setsuna, belatedly Hyuga Setsuna reported his name, I'm going to school because of the orders of the Son family. But I forgot to ask where the school is, and now I'm in trouble. So that's how it is, the mother nodded to express her understanding, but a look of sadness flashed in her eyes, and a bitter arc curled up at the corner of her mouth. It turned out that their mother and son were also wearing bandages wrapped around their foreheads. It seems that they are also branch houses. This child is called Hyuga Iroha, and he is going to take the entrance examination just like you. In that case, you can come with us, the young mother said. Hyuga Setsuna looked at Hyuga Iroha, it turned out that this year's class is not only one of them, but also a child of branch house. I don't know if it's because this world is too cruel, so the children in this world are extraordinarily precocious. Although Hyuga Iroha was only 5 years old, he didn't have a big nose, and greeted Hyuga Setsuna politely, hello, my name is Hyuga Iroha, and I am 5 years old this year. Hyuga Setsuna also hurriedly said, hello, I am also 5 years old. Immediately afterwards, he felt ashamed in his heart. Although Hyuga Iroha appeared to be more mature, he was still a child after all. Is he assimilated by his body's age? I heard Hyuga Iroha say again, let's get along well. Please give me your advice. Chapter 9. Since he met Hyuga Iroha mother and son, this brought convenience to Hyuga Setsuna, so that he didn't know where the school was, so he could go directly with them. Although the two sides have introduced themselves before, they are only just acquainted, and they are not yet familiar. So the two sides actually went their own way, Hyuga Iroha mother and son led the way in front, and Hyuga Setsuna followed silently. Hyuga Iroha's mother took the time to turn her head to look at Hyuga Setsuna, as if she remembered something and remembered the child's situation. No wonder he was alone, because his parents were gone. But even so, is he still ordered by his family to go to school at such a young age and alone? But Hyuga Iroha's mother didn't say much, just silently clenched Hyuga Iroha's little hand. Walking all the way forward, Hyuga Setsuna also looked at the surrounding scenery curiously. It turns out that this is the true face of Konoha Village. In his previous life, he could only get a glimpse of it through manga or animation, but now he is already in it. And because it is more than 10 years before the start of the plot, or even more than 20 years ago, Konoha Village seems a bit backward. This is what a small village looks like, there are not even a few taller buildings, the tallest is the most conspicuous one in the village, the Hokage building standing under the Hokage rock. Hyuga Setsuna looked up to the distance in front, just opposite the village gate, and near the back mountain of the village, there was a cliff. And on it, 3 human faces were engraved. Lined up from left to right, it is the first Hokage Senju Hashirama, the second Hokage Senju Tobirama, and now the third Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen. It's not yet the era of 4th Hokage Namikaze Minato. Looking at the familiar and unfamiliar scenes around and in the distance, Hyuga Setsuna understands that he is indeed already in it. The ninja school is ahead. Suddenly, Hyuga Iroha's mother reminded the two children and pointed forward. Hyuga Setsuna and Hyuga Iroha looked forward together, and saw a famous scene that Hyuga Setsuna had seen more than once appeared in the distance. It was a small building with white walls, and the roof above was made of red tiles. On the entrance gate, there was a huge character in the middle, and a row of small characters on it said Ninja School. There is no need to specifically call or write Konoha Shinobi School, after all, this is Konoha Village, and of course it is the ninja school of Konoha Village. The front door was already crowded with crowds, because today is the first day of school, so many parents brought their children. It seems that Hyuga Setsuna and the others have come late, so they had to line up silently at the end of the line. Hyuga Setsuna already knew in advance that if he wants to enter the school, he needs to complete an assessment to prove that he really has the qualifications to become a ninja, otherwise he will not be able to enter the school. But this assessment is surprisingly simple. According to Hyuga Hisashi, as long as he uses the clone technique in front of the examiner, he can pass. Hyuga Setsuna thought, who can fail such a simple technique that only needs to master the sequence of seals? Just as he was thinking this way, there was a commotion ahead. Might Guy, not qualified. Following an examiner's announcement, a child named Might Guy walked out of the school gate with his head down. Might Guy? Hyuga Setsuna's heart was moved, and he looked forward, and saw a child from the crowd who had had a watermelon head since he was a child and had already put on a green tights. He also vaguely saw that this child was the man who was called Guy by fans in the future who almost kicked the finale. But the current Might Guy can't even pass the examination of ninja school? I remember that Might Guy and Rock Lee are still different. Rock Lee really doesn't know ninjutsu and illusion, and can only rely on chakra to fight with physical skills. But Might Guy knows ninjutsu? There is also a summoning beast with. Hyuga Setsuna muttered inwardly. The so-called ninja aptitude is to assess whether one can know ninjutsu or illusion, not whether one has chakra, which needs to be explained. Because chakra is more like the vitality of the human body, it is a combination of some kind of power extracted from every cell in the body and spiritual power. In other words, in theory, as long as there is a living person, there is chakra, but the amount of chakra is different. So many people have misunderstood one thing for a long time. Rock Lee does not know ninjutsu and illusion, but chakra is also needed for physical arts. Without the support of chakra, physical skills are just ordinary boxing skills, but once chakra is added, the power can break mountains and crack rocks. It's just that the current Might Guy is the same as Xiao Li in the original book. The assessment of the ninja school alone has become a major difficulty, so he can only leave with his head down. Hyuga Setsuna looked at Might Guy's back, but he didn't underestimate him in his heart, jokingly, this guy is not a conventional type, he is definitely a genius in physical skills, and even a hard-working genius. Anyone who dares to underestimate this man is a fool. Those ninja school examiners will know later. What's more, even when Might Guy was leaving, there was a middle-aged man who was also wearing a green tights comforting him, and that was his father Might wearing it. Hyuga Setsuna looked around, all the children were accompanied by their parents, what right did he have to look down on others? Just when Hyuga Setsuna was about to laugh at himself, suddenly there was a conversation behind him. Kakashi, remember that kid well, sooner or later he will become your strong opponent. Father, are you talking about him? But he didn't even pass the assessment. Hyuga Setsuna looked back subconsciously, and couldn't help raising her eyebrows. I saw a pair of silver-haired father and son behind me. The older one was wearing a Konoha forehead protector and a Konoha shinobi vest. At first glance, he was already a ninja, and at least he was a Chunin or higher. Because that vest will only be distributed after becoming a Chunin. As for the small child, he wore a mask covering his mouth and nose. It's him? Hyuga Setsuna recognized them immediately. Isn't that exactly Hitaki Kakashi and his father Hitaki Sakumo? That is, would ya buy teeth? This year is really Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Chapter 10. Even Hitaki Kakashi and his son showed up right after Might Guy was eliminated because he failed the test. This year can be said to be Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. What surprised Hyuga Setsuna even more was still to come, and he would know when the time came. As the team began to move forward, not all the children were eliminated, and more children passed the assessment. Soon, it was finally Hyuga Iroha's turn in front of Hyuga Setsuna. Come on, Hyuga Setsuna encouraged him. Hyuga Iroha nodded and went in. Hyuga Setsuna turned his head to look behind him again. Hitaki noticed his gaze and gave him a gentle smile. The legendary wooden Yebya is no less than a venomous fang in the eyes of the enemy, but when facing the children in the village, he has such a gentle side. On the contrary, Hitaki Kakashi's eyes were cold, and his face under the mask was expressionless. Really, have you been a fart since you were a child? Hyuga Setsuna also nodded slightly and turned back without saying hello. After all, they don't know each other, and his knowledge of Kakashi is all from the plots and works of his previous life. At this moment, Hyuga Iroha came out from the school gate, followed by an examiner who said to Hyuga Iroha's mother, Hyuga Iroha failed. Hyuga Iroha was eliminated. Hyuga Setsuna was surprised, something he didn't expect. With his head down, Hyuga Iroha walked up to his mother like a frost-beaten eggplant to seek comfort. It's your turn, the examiner greeted Hyuga Setsuna at the front of the line and turned around to go in first. Now the pressure came to Hyuga Setsuna. He didn't expect that Hyuga Iroha would also fail. How is this possible? How difficult is this test? Taking a deep breath, Hyuga Setsuna followed the examiner into the school gate with heavy steps. In fact, the assessment site is inside the school gate. As soon as you enter, you will see a table with 2 teachers from the ninja school sitting behind. They are also the chunin of the village, but their usual tasks are mainly responsible for teaching students. As the examiner walked over and sat down, the 3 examiners looked at Hyuga Setsuna together, and one of them said, "Let me briefly introduce myself first." Hyuga Setsuna glanced at the table, and found that the examiner who spoke was holding a pen, and there was also a document on the table, which seemed to be to record his own information. My name is Hyuga Setsuna, I belong to the branch house of the Hyuga family, and I am 5 years old this year, Hyuga Setsuna simply said about his profile. Oh? She's a very cute girl, the examiner even praised. Well, I'm a boy, Hyuga Setsuna scratched his cheek, a little speechless. What? All 3 examiners raised their heads in surprise. Hyuga Setsuna couldn't laugh or cry. Why was he so surprised? Because I always think you are so cute, and with this name, you look more like a girl. The examiner in charge of recording the information smiled wryly and crumpled up the paper and threw it into the trash can not far away. Turns out he wrote Hyuga Setsuna's gender as female. But I didn't expect such a cute boy to be a boy. No way, the examiner had to re-record the information, this time writing his gender correctly. Okay, let's start your performance. What you need to do is let us recognize that you do have the qualifications to become a ninja, so that you can pass this assessment, another examiner said to him. Hyuga Setsuna nodded to show his understanding, and then without thinking, he began to make mudras with his hands, ready to perform the only ninjutsu he knew. Oh? It's not roll eyes or gentle fist, but clone technique. As expected of chunin, only from the first seal formed by Hyuga Setsuna, and the order of his subsequent seals, he has already guessed what technique he will use. Sure enough, the next second, Hyuga Setsuna shouted, "Clone technique!" Bang bang bang! This time, behind Hyuga Setsuna, 3 clones appeared one after another. Of course, he also consumes more chakra because of the extra clone. The eyes of the 3 examiners brightened. 3 clones? In fact, it has reached the level of graduation assessment, one of the examiners said. It turns out that the graduation assessment of ninja school is also based on 3-body technique. If clone technique is used as the assessment topic, it must at least reach the point where 3 clones can be separated. And once you graduate successfully, you have already reached the level of genin. So, could Hyuga Setsuna have graduated early? But he won't be in such a hurry to graduate. He still doesn't know a lot of basic knowledge about ninjas, and he understands that once he becomes a genin now, although he will get a good reputation, he will be considered a genius if he graduates in one day bar. But only he knows his own affairs. He now knows nothing but clone technique, not even Naruto in the original book. After all, that guy is a Jinkraki, and he knows how many shadow clone techniques. So Hyuga Setsuna acted as if he didn't hear it, and just stood there silently looking at the 3 examiners. The 3 examiners looked at each other. Pass, you can go to the back classroom first. Remember, your classroom is the first room on the left after the entrance on the first floor, an examiner reminded Hyuga Setsuna specifically. Hyuga Setsuna didn't care, and started to walk inside obediently. By the way, do you want to say hello to Hyuga Iroha and the others? Or forget it? Maybe they haven't waited for me anymore? Besides, Hyuga Iroha didn't pass, but I passed, so it's hard to say. Hyuga Setsuna hesitated for a moment, but gave up the idea of saying hello to Hyuga Iroha mother and child. Don't let people think that you are provoking or showing off, that will offend people instead. In this way, Hyuga Setsuna successfully passed the entrance examination, and when he was walking towards the teaching building, the task system had already sent a notification that the task was completed. Provide a reward task, complete the instructions of the Hyuga clan, and successfully pass the ninja school assessment. The task is completed, and the reward point is 50,000. Trigger the task and enroll with the genius boy Hatake Kakashi. The task is completed, and the reward point is 100,000. Daily tasks: enroll in the ninja school, complete the task, and reward 1000 bonus points. It turned out that when I woke up this morning, Hyuga Setsuna found that the daily tasks had been refreshed. The tasks that were not completed yesterday were automatically counted as failures, and the new tasks were released today. And as he successfully passed the assessment, the rewards of the 3 tasks were added together, and he got a total of 151,000 reward points. Chapter 11. In the end, Hyuga Setsuna passed the entrance examination smoothly. At the same time, he was a little puzzled. Isn't it just a clone technique? Why did some of those kids fail? Not only Might Guy, a future taijutsu expert, but also Hyuga Iroha failed? This is what he did not expect. I thought it would be difficult, but only one clone technique is enough. With a little confusion, Hyuga Setsuna came to the classroom according to the previous examiner's instructions. Pushing open the classroom door, he stepped in. Finally someone came in again. I'm going to be bored to death, a boring voice came from the classroom. Hyuga Setsuna almost mistakenly thought that he had time-traveled to the future era of 12 Xiaoqiang, Nara Shikamaru. That's like his speaking style. But when Hyuga Setsuna looked up at his seat, he found that the other party was not Nara Shikamaru. What surprised him even more was that besides himself, it seemed that the other party was the only one in the classroom before. Hey, newcomer, don't roll your eyes, let me introduce myself. The kid was sitting on a seat in the second row looking at Hyuga Setsuna with his legs crossed and his head held. Those who didn't know thought he was looking for faults, or was he just finding faults? Hyuga Setsuna frowned, snorted and said, I didn't roll my eyes, this is the blood successor of our family. My name is Hyuga Setsuna. I know, just kidding with you. By the way, my name is Sarutobi Asuma. I am 5 years old this year, but I will be 6 years old in a few months. It turned out that his name was Sarutobi Asuma. Hyuga Setsuna's heart skipped a beat, because the kid was still a child, so he almost didn't recognize him. Sarutobi Asuma, you can guess from the name and surname, he must be related to 3rd Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen. Not even a general relationship. In fact, Sarutobi Asuma is the son of Sarutobi Hiruzen. I have to say that Sarutobi Hiruzen is really old and strong. Even if the current Sarutobi Hiruzen is not as old as when he appeared in the original story, he is at least 30 or 40 years old, right? As his second son, Sarutobi Asuma is only 5 years old, so he is considered old. This Sarutobi Asuma even belonged to Sunan's peers, would you believe it? You know, Kakashi, as a peer, will later become a disciple of Namikaze Minato, and Namikaze Minato is a disciple of Jiraiya, one of the Sunan. This can be regarded as a step up. Kakashi, I am from your grandpa's generation. The current Sarutobi Asuma is not the sloppy uncle he will be in the future, but rather handsome and naughty. He should be very popular with girls, right? I said don't look at me with white eyes. I heard that your white eyes can see through? You are not very interested in me, are you? Hey? Little girl, Sarutobi Asuma put down his upturned feet, and suddenly said to Hyuga Setsuna became interested. Hyuga Setsuna sighed, and shook his head with his hands on his forehead. I'm sorry to disappoint you, I'm a man just like you. What? Sarutobi Asuma was stunned as if struck by lightning, looking at Hyuga Setsuna with long straight black hair and his delicate and lovely facial features. No matter how you look at it, she is a cute girl, right? Hyuga Setsuna didn't bother to pay attention to the second prince anymore. Seeing that there were only the two of them in the classroom, she casually found a seat nearby and sat down. Sarutobi Asuma on the side couldn't help but look at Hyuga Setsuna's profile, then shivered, and turned his head away with a slightly red face. Why do you think he is cute more and more? Damn, why is he a boy? A while later, when the atmosphere in the classroom was becoming more and more awkward, and Hyuga Setsuna was hesitant to open the system to look at other things, but worried about being discovered by Sarutobi Asuma. The door of the classroom was finally opened again, followed by a stinky kid walking in. It was none other than Hotaki Kakashi with conspicuous silver hair wearing a mask and staring with a pair of dead fish eyes. Finally someone came in again. I'm going to be bored to death. Sarutobi Asuma repeated what he said to Hyuga Setsuna before, and then he looked at Hotaki Kakashi who walked in spontaneously and went to find a seat to sit down and asked again, by the way, are you a boy? Hotaki Kakashi turned his head to look at Sarutobi Asuma blankly, as if looking at an idiot. Isn't he a boy or a girl? Really, don't look at me like that, look at the guy sitting over there, can you believe he said he's a boy? Sarutobi Asuma pointed at Hyuga Setsuna at the other end. Hotaki Kakashi followed his hand and looked over, and what caught his eyes was a dignified doll-like person with long black and beautiful hair, fair skin that could be broken by blowing bombs, and a perfect and lovely side face. In fact, due to malnutrition recently, I appear thinner, and my skin is also whiter. Even Hotaki Kakashi's blank expression is a little bit broken, so it turned out to be a boy? He thought it was a girl before. Even his father, when he was waiting outside the door, had joked about taking his chances or something. Dad, I don't know how you'd feel if you knew it was a boy. Hotaki Kakashi's expression was complicated. But what is strange is that, for some reason, it is clear that many children have passed the entrance examination before, but no one came in after that. That's right, the whole classroom was quiet, and there were only 3 people, Hyuga Setsuna, Sarutobi Asuma, and Hotaki Kakashi? This is somewhat surprising. After a long time, finally, the classroom door was pushed open again. All 3 children looked forward. Because Hyuga Setsuna was speechless by Sarutobi Asuma, and Hotaki Kakashi was also a boring gourd, which made Sarutobi Asuma also slowly shut up. The whole classroom was quiet and bored to death. Is there finally a newcomer now? It turned out that it wasn't a student who came in, but one of the 3 previous examiners. I didn't expect that only 3 of you special recruits passed the assessment this year. It's going to be difficult. The examiner looked at the 3 children with a headache. Special enrollment. Hyuga Setsuna caught a message and expressed doubts. Don't you know this? Sarutobi Asuma immediately became interested, and before the examiner could explain, he stood up and explained, special enrollment means specially recruited students. You'd better sit down. Not only Hyuga Setsuna, Hitaki Kakashi and the examiner started rolling their eyes. Chapter 12. Regardless of the funny Sarutobi Asuma, the examiner finally explained to Hyuga Setsuna what special admission is. It turns out that Sarutobi Asuma, Hyuga Setsuna, and Hitaki Kakashi are all 5 years old. In fact, the official admission age should be 6 years old. If you come to school at the age of 6, you don't need to take the assessment. After all, the original intention of the establishment of the ninja school is to train ninjas, not to screen ninjas. In other words, the task of Ushinin in the school is to help you to become a ninja. How can there be an assessment? Only when you graduate will there be an assessment. At that time, it will really determine whether you can become a ninja. At the same time, it is also responsible for your safety. We will not let unqualified children go to the battlefield, it will only let you to die. And the reason why you will encounter the assessment is precisely because you are not yet old enough to go to school, so it is an additional special recruitment assessment. This is special enrollment. After listening to the examiner's explanation, Hyuga Setsuna and the others finally understood what was going on. That is to say, they are enrolled early. No wonder there are only 3 of them in this classroom. Those who pass the assessment are admitted normally, so they are in another classroom, right? Then what should we do now? Hyuga Setsuna was more concerned. We won't be expelled from school, right? After all, there are only 3 special students here, or should we go to class with other students? Although Hyuga Setsuna has completed the task, it is only the task of integrating the system, and the enrolling task given to him by the Zone family has to continue. He is not accompanied and protected by his parents and family like Hyuga Iroha. He is alone. Once the clan blames him, how should he face it? He didn't want to go through the pain of being tortured by caged bird again. This is also a problem that we are having a headache. In fact, there are many of your peers in the village, and some of them have excellent backgrounds. It's a pity that many of those children are not in a hurry to take part in the assessment, the examiner sighed. According to the information Hyuga Setsuna got from the original book, it is true. Leaving others aside, Might Guy will definitely be enrolled, and then there is Uchiha Obito, and of course there are other people, such as Rin Nohara, Kuroyuki, and so on. And among these people, for example, Obito was born in the Uchiha clan, and Kuroyuki's father seems to be at the Jainin level. With their origins, a mere clone technique is not a problem. It's a pity that none of those children showed up now, but the silly boy Sarutobi Asuma came. Can't we have classes with other students? Asked Sarutobi Asuma, a silly boy who didn't know how Hyuga Setsuna had programmed himself in his mind. The examiner smiled wryly and shook his head. Your age is 1 year behind the others. You should have waited until you were 6 years old to come to class. If you rashly let you go with them, it would be irresponsible to you as well as to them. Irresponsibility. You know, ninjas are not lone rangers, and in the future you have to gain experience fighting with your companions. And once you become a weak point in the team, it will put the entire team in crisis. Don't underestimate the difference of 1 year, at least in childhood, the difference of 1 year is sometimes very big. It would seem unfair to put them in the same grade as 6-year-olds. At the same time, it would be unfair to others if they were allowed to mix and match with others. This is also easy to understand. But I can't let you drop out of school and go back. It seems that I can only ask Mr. Hokage for instructions before making a decision. It just so happens that today is the first day of school. You go back first, and come back to this class tomorrow morning, and then I will tell you your results. the examiner already had the intention of seeing off the guests. The three children looked at each other in blank dismay, and finally got up helplessly and walked outside. Hyuga Setsuna wondered what this was all about as he walked outside. It turned out that they came early, and they came a whole year early. Could it be that the Zong family didn't know? Or did the Zong family do it on purpose? In fact, the examiner's explanation is correct, right? For example, Might Guy, he is really not good at ninjutsu and genjutsu. If he has to pass the examination before going to school, how many years will he have to delay? How to be with other peers? What's more, since there is an assessment when you graduate, then you don't need an assessment when you enter school, right? Wouldn't it be fine as long as you pass the exam when you graduate? The three children had no intention of talking along the way, but Sarutobi Asuma opened his mouth a few times, but he looked at Hyuga Setsuna, who was deep in thought, and at Hitaki Kakashi, who was expressionless, and finally said nothing. After a while, they came out of the school gate. To Hyuga Setsuna's surprise, he found that Hyuga Iroha mother and son did not leave, but in the shade of a tree opposite, as if waiting for him. It's finally out, Hyuga Iroha's mother said with relief when she saw Hyuga Setsuna. Hyuga Iroha also rushed over at a trot, and asked excitedly, Setsuna, have you passed the test? You haven't come out for so long, did you pass? Well, Hyuga Setsuna nodded, and said apologetically, but don't worry about it, Hyuga Iroha. It turns out that this assessment is specially prepared for students who start school early, so you can easily go to school next year. I already know that. By the way, you can just call me Iroha. After all, we are all from the Hyuga clan. It feels weird to call you by your full name. Besides, I also call you Setsuna, right? Hyuga Iroha he is also very familiar, and has improved a little relationship in terms of address. But suddenly Sarutobi Asuma came over from the side, and said to Hyuga Iroha with a resentful face, Hey, do you know that this guy is actually a boy? Hey! Hyuga Iroha stood there dumbfounded. Even Hyuga Iroha's mother was surprised, Oh, so Setsuna is not a girl, I want you to get along well. Hey, lady, are you thinking too early? What's more, even if everyone is a boy, they can get along well. No, it doesn't mean that kind of dirty, it's just that it's not good to be friends. Hyuga Setsuna stretched out her hand to grab her waist-length hair speechlessly, and thought she might as well cut it off. He didn't turn the corner. The Hyuga clan generally has long hair, even Hyuga Iroha. But why no one mistook Hyuga Iroha for a girl? The problem was never about the hair. Chapter 13. Since Hyuga Setsuna and their class, or the three of them, are special, we can only go back today. Sarutobi Asuma has gone back with an Anbu. After all, he is the son of third Hokage and deserves to be cared for and protected. What's more, Anbu is Hokage's direct subordinate. Even after Namikaze Minato becomes fourth Hokage, he can assign Hitaki Kakashi to take care of his pregnant wife. At the same time Hitaki Kakashi also left alone, his father had already left when he came out. Hitaki Kakashi is not an ordinary child, and he didn't cry or care. Then let's go to the family residence as well. Hyuga Iroha's mother greeted the two children, and she was responsible for bringing the two children home just like when they came. I didn't communicate much along the way. After all, I just realized the relationship at this point in the morning. Another thing is that Hyuga Setsuna hasn't started class yet, and I have to wait until tomorrow to know the final result. So all the way without a word, he quickly returned to the family residence. In front of the resident gate, Hyuga Setsuna thanked Hyuga Iroha mother and son politely, then said goodbye and ran away. While trotting in the direction of home, Hyuga Setsuna smiled wryly. Obviously the combined age of the two generations may be older than Hyuga Iroha's mother. But in terms of dealing with the world, he is a bit naive. I even felt uncomfortable, so I chose to run away quickly. I don't know if it's a relationship that I haven't fully adapted to, or is it that I still don't have a deep sense of reality and can't generate a sense of identity. I always feel that this world is still illusory. Before that, it's better to go home first, and then think about how to use these reward points. Hyuga Setsuna shook his head, and continued to run in the direction of home. Maybe he was too anxious, or maybe he didn't pay attention when shaking his head. Hyuga Setsuna suddenly bumped into someone head-on. Both let out a cry of pain. Hyuga Setsuna subconsciously said, "I'm sorry. Are you blind?" Suddenly, there was an angry shout from the opposite side, which completely covered up Hyuga Setsuna's apology. Hyuga Setsuna looked up, and it turned out that it was a father and son. This is the residence of the Hyuga clan. It is conceivable that the other party is also a Hyuga clan. But unlike Hyuga Setsuna, the child who was being helped up opposite was not only gorgeously dressed, but also had no bandages or curse marks on his forehead. It was a middle-aged man who lashed out just now. He picked up the child who was knocked down by Hyuga Setsuna just now, continued to glare at Hyuga Setsuna, and continued to scold him unceremoniously. "How dare you knock down the Zongjia? Don't you know what you are? Identity? A mere branch house dares to run on the road? Why don't you step aside for me?" Hyuga Setsuna gritted her teeth. In fact, it was his reckless mistake that knocked someone down, and it was his fault, so he immediately apologized. "Although I don't ask the other party to understand, but because of the identity of the clan and branch house, do you continue to be aggressive?" Hyuga Setsuna took a deep breath, resisting the urge to explode. Obviously everyone is from Hyuga's family, yet he said he was blind? So don't you have cataracts? It seems that you are still not convinced. Suddenly, the man on the opposite side showed a fierce look, holding the child with one hand, raising the other hand to raise the index finger and middle finger, and then looked at Hyuga Setsuna. I don't know what he did. Suddenly, Hyuga Setsuna felt as if his brain had been pricked by a needle, and a piercing pain exploded directly from his mind. No, actually Hyuga Setsuna understood right away what was going on. "Caged bird, don't!" Hyuga Setsuna covered his head with his hands. He just stood up, but because of the pain, he knelt down, lying on the ground with his head in his arms, wishing to hit his head hard on the ground, whether it was the "it is better to knock myself out or to die here than this pain." So that man actually launched curse mark, caged bird on his child? And he didn't intend to stop at all. Even with a calm face, he stood there condescendingly watching Hyuga Setsuna in pain. Many people from Hyuga gathered around because of the noise. Among them, there was a scene with clear distinctions. People who came out of the Zone family were all watching indifferently. And those who came out from the direction of the branch house dared not speak out. Even Hyuga Iroha mother and son rushed over. Hyuga Iroha was held tightly by his mother, although he looked like he wanted to ask for love, but he didn't dare to offend the clan. This is the caged bird. Once it is branded, it will become a caged bird in the hands of the Zone family, and they can do whatever they want. Enough. Suddenly, someone finally broke in and stopped him with a loud shout. If this continues, the child will die. Is it Hyuga Hisashi? No, he didn't wear a forehead protector, and there was no trace of curse marks on his smooth forehead, so he is Hyuga Hayashi, Hyuga Hisashi's elder brother, and also the head of the clan, the son of the patriarch, and the heir of the next patriarch. With the intervention of Hyuga Hayashi, this emergency situation is finally over. The father and son of the two clans also turned around and left without paying any attention to the aftermath. Hyuga Setsuna was still curled up in a ball. At this time, he was soaked in cold sweat, but he still raised his head with great effort, looking in the direction where the father and son left. It's just that the name of the clan and the branch house are different, but the status is so different. Look at that carefree kid, who is about the same age as Hyuga Setsuna, but doesn't need to think about going to school, being a ninja, going to war or being in danger. Even though they are the same age, I have to encounter various things. Not only are my parents dead, but I have to work for my family at this age. Do I have to sacrifice my life for such a clan? Why are they domineering? Why are they superior? Why do I have to kneel here in such a humiliating way? What a shit branch house, what a shit caged bird. Wait until I break it all. Hyuga Setsuna lowered his head and buried his face on the ground, not letting anyone see his vicious gaze and distorted expression with anger and pain, while cursing wildly in his heart. At this moment, he finally made up his mind, and the only goal he will do his best next is to solve the caged bird on his head. Then he will use all means to improve his strength, because he wants revenge. Zongjia? Wait for my branch house to rebel against you. Chapter 14. In the end, Hyuga Setsuna didn't know how he got home because he was fainted by the severe pain. After all, he is only 5 years old now. It was not until night that he woke up slowly. Am I still alive? Hyuga Setsuna woke up in a dark room. I don't know which kind-hearted person sent him back home, and it was his own bed in the room. Aren't you willing to take me to the hospital? Hyuga Setsuna knows that there is Konoha Hospital in Konoha Village, which is a place where medical ninjas are gathered to treat villagers and ninjas. Perhaps the current Konoha Hospital is not as advanced as modern medical equipment, but because of the existence of medical ninjutsu, it also has other advantages. The family is over. In the darkness, Hyuga Setsuna's white eyes flashed a bright light. It wasn't that he opened his eyes, but that there was anger and hatred in his eyes. Even if it was indeed his fault at first, it was because he didn't look the way and bumped into someone. Even if you don't accept his apology, it's fine even if you kick him. After all, he was wrong. But was caged bird actually used on a child? Not only the pain, but he even felt that if Hyuga Hayashi hadn't come out to stop him, he might have died there. That guy, relying on his status as the clan, to act recklessly like this, to be so high above, and to like to trample others under his feet? What a shitty family. The Zone family didn't treat the branch house as a human being. It is obvious that their branch house, these dog legs are protecting the Zone family, and their branch house is working hard outside, but the Zone family not only enjoys all this as a matter of course, but even treats the people in the branch house as their slaves? For such a family, he didn't even have any goodwill, let alone a sense of belonging. Even the broken gentle fist law is treated like a treasure, and they are very guarded against their own branch house. No, the branch house is not their own. The more Hyuga Setsuna thought about it, the more angry he was. He said that he was from the Hyuga family, but in fact, apart from the pair of white eyes that have not yet opened, what can he come up with that can represent the Hyuga family? He is not qualified to say that he is from the Hyuga family, and he dare not discredit the Hyuga family. The most important thing is this caged bird. As long as it is still alive, as long as the Zone family wants to, it can kill me at any time. I must get rid of it. Hyuga Setsuna firmly pressed the curse mark on his forehead with his hand. If he didn't realize it before, if it wasn't for Hyuga Hisashi's reminder at the beginning, he even planned to go out with the curse on his forehead. Anyway, he didn't care. It's really funny to think about it now. He finally knew why the branch house was so concerned about covering the curse mark on his forehead. This is not only a humiliation, but also a proof that the clan enslaves the branch house, and even the branch house's wealth and life are firmly in the hands of the clan. The branch house is exactly the caged bird in the cage controlled by the Zone family. But I can't express my dissatisfaction with the Zone family yet. At least I will bear it until I solve caged bird. I am not a real child. If I can't even do this bit of tolerance, I might as well die myself. Can be happy. Caged bird's ability requires 300,000 reward points, and I have already got 151,000 points, which is only half of it. Even if the so-called trigger tasks will not be easily triggered in the future, as long as you grasp the daily tasks, and it should not be difficult to refresh the reward task every month. Don't look at the fixed reward point of the daily task is 1000, which seems to be very little, but it can't stand the frequency of the daily task refreshing every day. 1000 a day means 30,000 a month. As long as you can complete the task every day, you can save 150,000 in 5 months. Although Hyuga Setsuna is not sure that after he has mastered curse mark, caged bird, he will know how to lift the curse. But other than that, does he have other options? Caged bird is too mysterious. Not only is there no way to get rid of it in the entire Hokage plot, but even the process of implanting the curse seal is unknown. At present, the only way that Hyuga Setsuna can think of to release caged bird is to obtain this technique first. Otherwise, even death cannot escape. Hyuga Setsuna slowly closed his eyes. Because in the original plot, Hyuga Hisashi was reincarnation by impure world, and even curse mark, caged bird appeared on his forehead. Could it be that even death cannot escape? This is too cruel, right? How on earth did the Hyuga clan invent this vicious curse seal specifically for their own clan? Moreover, it happened that the elder brother and elder sister who were born first targeted the younger brother and younger sister. Isn't the firstborn child to protect younger siblings? Why is it the other way around in this family? Sure enough, this family is extremely twisted. But now I have no way to fight against this behemoth. Although I wish the members of the clan to die immediately, but until I can fight them, I must first let myself endure. Besides cursing and attracting death, I also do nothing. Even if curse mark, caged bird is removed, I still have to pretend. Damn it, my strength is too weak. If only I were Nine Tails Jinkraki, I will give Konoha Village the power to cooperate with Kurama. There's going to be a mess. Hyuga Setsuna was thinking extremely dangerous thoughts. If he were to be the Nine Tails Jinkraki, there is no doubt that he would immediately go berserk on the spot. Because now he is being burned with great anger and hatred. If he had a way, he would even die with the Zone family. This is not an exaggeration at all, let alone the innocent people of other clans. You know, that is not the attitude of one clan, but the attitude of the entire clan stepping on top of the branch house. It's not that one clan decided to brand Hyuga Setsuna with a spell, nor was it that one clan made him take the exam. It's the common will of all the clans. If that's the case, shouldn't it be the entire clan that he wants to be hostile to? You want me to die? I want to live for you to see, and I want to live longer than anyone else. Caged bird is for the branch house to protect the main family, so that the main family can continue the Hyuga clan? It's a dog chain tied to the branch house. Don't give me a chance, otherwise, I will destroy the entire family with my own hands, and I will do what I say. This is my ninja way. No. Chapter 15. Hyuga Setsuna, who was hiding at home, can be said to have vented hard. Otherwise, it is difficult to vent the inner anger. Even though it was just a trivial matter, it almost killed him. The Zone family didn't regard the branch house as a person at all. What made him feel even more unfair was that for children of the same age, the children of the Zone family could be innocent and enjoy a complete childhood. And what about their branch house kids? He had to go to school at the age of 5, and then became a ninja, working for the village in the name of the clan and the Hyuga clan. Why? Even the main family has monopolized the gentle fist method that should belong to all the Hyuga clan. Is this fair? Is this plausible? Whether it's the injustice he has encountered, the experience of being almost killed by the caged bird by the Zone family today, and the pain he has suffered twice because of the caged bird, it is enough to make people die. All made Hyuga Setsuna full of hatred for the clan. He is not the other branch house that has been submissive, he still has a system, so he may have the opportunity to raise the banner of rebellion against the Zone family. Just wait. Of course, he also has self-knowledge. Before he has enough confidence, he will not give the Zone family a chance to hurt himself. Even if he is to be a dog now, he must act to satisfy everyone until the day when the resistance comes. I must become stronger as soon as possible, but before I can't easily use the reward points to master other abilities, what should I do? What can I do? Hyuga Setsuna began to meditate. After some thought, he came to a conclusion. Cultivation. Since there is a hard-working genius like Might Guy, why can't I improve my strength through hard work? Isn't it just a broken gentle fist method? Even if it is given to me, I don't want it. Next, I will take the path of gentle fist. Anyway, there is no chance to learn the gentle fist method under the control of the Zone family, so I simply don't look forward to it. Isn't there a ready-made case in front of you on the other side? As long as he can practice as hard as Might Guy, as long as he trains his own strength to be extremely powerful, even without the gentle fist method, it may be impossible to master another physical technique and combat system. Thinking of this, Hyuga Setsuna couldn't wait to jump off the bed. Just standing on the ground, Hyuga Setsuna still felt unwell, because it hurt too much before, and now not only is there residual pain in his head, but his body is also extremely weak. Maybe a little dehydrated from sweating too much? Shaking his head, Hyuga Setsuna gritted his teeth and walked out the door. Standing in the yard, a ray of cool night breeze finally woke him up and made him feel much more comfortable. Then Hyuga Setsuna looked at the overgrown yard and suddenly said to himself, "It happens that there is a ready-made lawn, so I don't have to go outside to embarrass myself." It turned out that he thought that the idle yard could be used as a training ground, so that he could secretly hide at home and exercise. Anyway, his house is in the corner of the residence of the Hyuga clan, and no guests will visit him. I am afraid that even if he died quietly at home, no one may notice, right? If it was Hyuga Setsuna before, he would only feel tragic and a little lonely, but now he feels grateful. But when it comes to cultivation, how do I start? Although I have achieved enlightenment, I have no way to start. Hyuga Setsuna fell into confusion again. Again, he can be said to know nothing about ninjas, which may not be as good as those fans in the real world. Hyuga Setsuna also knows some other Hokage fans, and many of them like to learn some useless things, such as the hand gestures of Knuckles. It is said that some people can really do the Knuckles like a real ninja. In addition, there is the famous Hokage running, which is a hobby that many fans of the second disease are eager to imitate. And Hyuga Setsuna just generally liked this work before, but it is still impossible for him to learn those things. It turned out to be a problem now. Sure enough, we can only follow Might Guy and Xiao Li's method? But I remember their cultivation level is exaggerated. Of course, the cultivation difficulty of this pair of masters and apprentices is simply hell level, and it is a plan they have made for themselves. It is often either more than 1,000 push UPS, actually, push UPS, or how many laps you can walk around Ninja Village with your hands, not to mention running with a load, which is already pediatrics. And once you can't finish it in one go, you will start from scratch again. This is simply torturing yourself. Who in a normal person would be so hard on himself? But it is precisely because of such crazy and desperate training that their master and apprentice have even mastered the forbidden technique like 8 inner gates. Who dares to underestimate their physical skills? Those who dare to laugh at them, who can compare with them in the end? That is to say, is the so-called cultivation actually exercising? It's just that the degree of exercise is more desperate. I just fell asleep, comatose, all afternoon, and I can't sleep now, so let's start with push UPS. Hyuga Setsuna didn't hesitate anymore. He didn't have that kind of leeway. After what he went through in the afternoon, he finally understood. This is indeed a world that eats people, and even for a helpless child like him, his life may not be as good as a straw. Just imagine, if Hyuga Hayashi hadn't come forward at that time, he might have been tortured to death in front of so many people. Who will seek justice for him in the end? If you want to survive in this world, you can only rely on yourself. Only the power you have is king. With such awareness, Hyuga Setsuna slowly lay down on the grass under the dark night sky. Then he started doing push UPS. It's a pity that he was doing push UPS for the first time, but in the end he could only do 6 push UPS. After all, he is only 5 years old, and he is still a little malnourished, and he was tortured like that again today. 6 is the limit. But after a short rest, Hyuga Setsuna gritted his teeth and stood up again. This time he did 4. After resting for a while, he made 3 more. This time he really reached his limit. He suspected that even if he tried harder, he might only be able to do 1. Since the muscles on the arms are at their limit, let's exercise the muscles on the legs. I can trot first, and then do squats and leapfrogs. Anyway, as long as I don't die, it will always make me stronger. Hyuga Setsuna started to be ruthless, and she was indeed determined to do her best. If you don't work hard now, your life will only be harvested in vain in the future. Instead of being killed, he chose to practice himself until he died. As long as you don't die, let's practice. Chapter 16. Ah, it hurts. The next morning, Hyuga Setsuna woke up with aches and pains. Because of the inhuman treatment he received yesterday, he realized that if he wanted to survive in this world, he had to be more ruthless to himself. But after a night of practice, he managed to make all his muscles protest. Obviously, the brain was tortured before, but he tortured the muscles of the whole body, and now it can be said that there is no place in the whole body that does not feel pain. But there are benefits too. Properties panel. With Hyuga Setsuna's call, a translucent dialog box appeared in front of him, displaying his attributes. Before Hyuga Setsuna's attributes were, Constitution 5, Strength 6, Agility 4, Spirit 4, Intelligence 8. Look at his attributes at this time. 8th in Physique, 8th in Strength, 8th in Agility, 8th in Spirit, and 8th in Intelligence. Belonging is to align all the 5-dimensional attributes. After only 1 night of exercise, have the attributes improved so much? Hyuga Setsuna propped his chin with his right hand, looking at his current attributes with a thoughtful expression. Physique and strength are easy to understand, including agility. Although it was his first time exercising last night, at least it was the first time his body in this world had this exercise. But he almost reached the limit. I did push UPS until I couldn't do them, and then I ran around the yard for an unknown number of times, and I also ran until I couldn't run anymore. Then he gritted his teeth and did 15 squats, which also caused his current thighs to look like they were not his own, and the muscles in both legs were trembling by themselves. Obviously the brain did not issue instructions, as if they had their own consciousness and protested against him as the master. It is also because of this exercise that the physical fitness, strength, and agility attributes have all improved. But how is the spirit raised? Is it because of my enlightenment? Or because my willpower persisted, so I also improved my spiritual attributes? But my intelligence doesn't seem to change? Am I mentally handicapped? Hyuga Setsuna began to play tricks. Don't think about it, is it intentional to align the attributes? Having said that, because the system quantifies the attributes, it is really convenient to be able to notice whether I have grown at any time, and it makes me more confident. Hyuga Setsuna is not burying his head in penance, which allows him to notice his growth at any time, and actually feel that he is indeed getting stronger. This will make him look forward to future training even more. It's like playing a role-playing game. Only by constantly making the character stronger will it be interesting and you will keep going to the liver. It's just that Hyuga Setsuna is playing himself. By the way, yesterday's examiner, or rather the teacher, said that he would go to the school this morning and then give us the future arrangements for the 3 special admissions. It seems that it will be troublesome later. Hyuga Setsuna tried to get his feet out of the bed, but the mere movement almost killed him in place. The sourness brought about by muscle fatigue, whoever tries it will know. But Hyuga Setsuna had no choice, he could only bite the bullet and climbed down from the bed, but he couldn't care less about personal hygiene. He put on the clothes casually, didn't even bother to do his hair, and wrapped the cloth belt before in the forehead. It went out and went out. When he walked on the street of the station in such a miserable state, many people in the branch house who saw him showed unbearable expressions. It may be too early, and there are not many clans on the street, but a few can be seen by chance. Hyuga Setsuna lowered his head so as not to accidentally show hatred and murderous eyes when he saw Sokka. But the more he behaved like this, the more those clans raised their heads proudly. After all, it happened in the family residence. It seems that the news about Hyuga Setsuna has been spread yesterday, right? Maybe those Zongjia still came to see the joke on purpose, and wanted to use him as an example to make those branch houses understand that Zongjia should not be offended. Hyuga Setsuna didn't say anything, just gritted his teeth silently, dragged his trembling legs and moved away from Hyuga's residence step by step. Hyuga Setsuna took a long breath until he came outside. Only when he came to the noisy village did he feel that he was still alive, otherwise Hyuga Setsuna would mistakenly think that he was living in the graveyard circle of the cemetery. It's a pity that I can't move out. Hyuga Setsuna turned her head and looked at the family residence again, but she didn't have the slightest sense of belonging to the so-called family, including the looming figures in the distance, especially those who stood on the side of the clan. Make him extremely disgusted. Forget it, let's go to school first. So he continued to move to the school with great difficulty, dragging his legs and feet that seemed to be crippled. When he came to yesterday's classroom, he was already late. Yesterday's teacher wanted to get angry, because Hitaki Kakashi and Sarutobi Asuma arrived early, and he was late on the first day. But when he saw Hyuga Setsuna's miserable appearance, the teacher was stunned. What's going on? Have you been attacked? The teacher almost thought that an enemy had sneaked into Konoha Village. Hyuga Setsuna forced a wry smile. It can be regarded as being attacked. But it's not someone else, it's just being taught a lesson by the adult of the family. It doesn't matter, teacher. Does it matter? In other words, is it a matter within the Hyuga clan? The teacher frowned, and wanted to continue asking questions, but seeing Hyuga Setsuna's appearance, coupled with his powerlessness against the giants of the Hyuga clan, he could only shut his mouth silently. On the contrary, Sarutobi Asuma asked indifferently, could it be that you also played some pranks? Thought it was you? The second young master of the Sarutobi family, and the second prince of Konoha Village, as third Hokage, is also the child of the head of the Sarutobi family. Do you think anyone can act recklessly like you? Hyuga Setsuna shook his head and didn't say much, just took a difficult step to the seat on the far right side of the first row by the window and sat down. In fact, there are only 3 students in the whole class, Hyuga Setsuna on the far right, Sarutobi Asuma on the far left, and Hitaki Kakashi sitting alone in the middle. Obviously there are only the 3 of them, but they are still so far apart, let alone team awareness, I always feel that they just don't fight. The teacher sighed silently again, and then said, since Hyuga Setsuna is here, I will tell you the result of my consultation with Lord Third Hokage yesterday. Although there are only 3 of you in the special enrollment this year, Mr. Hokage still decided to open a special course for you. But you still can't mix with other classes, but wait until the students who are the same age as you start school next year, let you join the others. Hitaki Kakashi asked at the time, that is to say, we have to waste a year? Just to wait for those idiots who are not qualified enough. Listen, geniuses are so good at talking. Chapter 17. Regarding the handling of these 3 special enrollments, the village is actually quite a headache. You said that if there were more people in this class, then it would be no problem, just give them a juvenile class for these young geniuses and special recruits. Anyway, let them form a team with the same class when the time comes. But there are only 3 of them, why not force them to form a team? What about compatibility issues? You must know that the current era still retains the 3-person team concept proposed by Tsunade, one of the Sunin, that is to say, in a 3-person team, there must be at least one medical ninja, which can greatly improve the survival rate of the team. But look at Hyuga Setsuna, Hitaki Kakashi, and Sarutobi Asuma, who seems to be able to become a medical ninja. Hyuga Setsuna is also a member of the Hyuga family anyway, and the combination of rolling eyes and gentle fist is the kingly way, from the perspective of ordinary people. Not to mention Hitaki Kakashi, his parent Yabuya Hitaki Sakumo is still alive. You let him become a medical ninja? Aren't you afraid that Muyi's white teeth slashed at you? Said you misunderstood my son? As for Sarutobi Asuma, he is the most troublesome. First of all, the question of whose son he is not mentioned. Secondly, the Sarutobi clan represented by Sarutobi Asuma actually has the fire-style ninjutsu of the Uchiha clan. Then let's talk about his identity as the second prince. If it is an ordinary 3 children, this class can be disbanded, just let them go home and come back next year. But there is a Sarutobi Asuma here to challenge people, and it is not acceptable to disband or force a team. In the end, we can only find a middle way, that is, let them hang up in school first, and then wait until they are 6 years old next year, and then go to the same class as other peers. But Hitaki Kakashi is not willing. They came in with their ability, why should they waste a year waiting for those idiots? Although Hitaki Kakashi is only 5 years old, he is so arrogant. The current Hitaki Kakashi really has the spirit of a young genius. If Uchiha Sasuke sees him, he will understand how real geniuses talk. Compared with Hitaki Kakashi, Sasuke has become cute. In short, the village and Mr. Hokage decided this way. You just need to be obedient and obedient. The teacher coughed dryly, but his momentum was a little low. Because he found out in embarrassment that he couldn't afford to provoke these 3 children? In fact, the best one to bully should be Hyuga Setsuna, but look at his innocent white eyes, and think about the behemoth of the Hyuga clan, as expected, forget it. Not to mention that Sarutobi Asuma is the second prince. Yabuya is not something he dares to offend. I always feel that these 3 are not here to go to school, these are the 3 little ancestors, right? The teacher was about to burst into tears. Why did he have to deal with this troublesome class? Your name is Hitaki Kakashi, right? I know you. Your father is Yabuya, a hero of the village. If you don't want to waste time, why don't you choose to graduate early? Suddenly, Sarutobi Asuma made an incredible proposal, and looked at Hitaki Kakashi provocatively. Maybe it was because he was not happy with Hitaki Kakashi's fart as a peer, but Sarutobi Asuma suddenly started to find fault. However, Hitaki Kakashi showed a thoughtful expression, and said approvingly, "This is a way. In fact, I told my father from the beginning that coming to the ninja school is just a waste of time. I'm just practicing with my father, even if I don't go to school and become a genin, it's fine." You are indeed a genius, it is indeed you Hitaki Kakashi, who can say such cool words in such a flat tone. Now even Sarutobi Asuma was stunned. It seems that he was just upset with Hitaki Kakashi just now and wanted to run on the other party. Unexpectedly, Hitaki Kakashi really wanted to graduate early? Blinking, Sarutobi Asuma noticed that the teacher on the podium and that cunning Hyuga Setsuna, were also looking at him, and he was a little embarrassed to get off the stage. "Humph, you're just bragging, I don't believe you can graduate early," Sarutobi Asuma shouted angrily. Hitaki Kakashi gave him a puzzled look, wondering why he was bragging. He also said calmly, "Even I have to prepare. After all, I heard that the early graduation assessment needs to master the basic 3-body technique of clone technique, body replacement technique and transformation technique at the same time, but about 1 month should be enough. If you are participating in the graduation assessment of ninja school, the school will randomly select one of the 3-body techniques as the assessment standard, and you can graduate as long as you succeed. For example, take the clone technique as an example. Generally speaking, the standard is to be able to separate 3 clone techniques, and the completion of the clone technique must be very high. You cannot separate a thing that you don't even know what it is, and you cannot separate a doppelganger that can't even stand upright won't even serve as a cover-up. Because all the students in the school are children, and some are from ordinary civilian families, even this assessment standard may not be passed by everyone. If you can't pass it, you can't become genin. As for the transformation technique and body replacement technique, they also have their own standards, such as what kind of thing to turn into, or how to complete the transformation in a few seconds, how complete and so on. Body replacement technique should be done in the face of unexpected situations, right when you are attacked. For ordinary graduation assessment, you only need to choose one of them to meet the standard. But if you graduate early, it will be more troublesome. What you need is to master the 3 body technique at the same time, and all of them have to pass the examination. It seems that Hitaki Kakashi is very confident. Is he going to practice all 3 body technique within a month? Even the teacher was surprised. If he could really do it, it would be amazing. This is definitely a genius. Hyuga Setsuna on the side was not surprised. After all, he knew that Hitaki Kakashi had indeed graduated at the age of 5 after entering school, and then graduated in the same year. So for him, even if he had to complete the preparation within a month, it shouldn't be a problem, right? But what surprised Hyuga Setsuna was that he was prompted by the system just as Hitaki Kakashi finished speaking. Trigger the task and complete the early graduation assessment with Hitaki Kakashi. The task is completed, and the reward point is 300,000. Did you trigger the mission again? And still give 300,000 reward points in one breath? Isn't this all about getting curse mark, caged bird? Is he finally going to get rid of this threat and bondage? Chapter 18. Somehow, it was Hitaki Kakashi who planned to graduate early, but Hyuga Setsuna triggered the mission instead. In other words, if he can graduate with Kakashi, he can get more than half of the reward points, even enough to buy the curse mark, caged bird, so that he has the opportunity to find a way to undo his own curse. To be honest, even Hyuga Setsuna was moved. But immediately he sighed silently. Impossible. It's not that I'm worried that I won't be able to pass the early graduation assessment, but it's just the basic 3 body technique. Even if I can't find someone to teach me transformation technique and body replacement technique. But don't forget, he still has 151,000 reward points that are useless, but the basic 3 body technique is not expensive, and can be mastered by cheating the system. But the biggest problem comes from reality. If he and Kakashi graduated early in just 1 month, one can imagine how big a sensation it would cause, not to mention the name of genius. Then, won't the Zone family notice it? At that time, I am afraid that the Zone family will only squeeze themselves even more. In addition, becoming genin ahead of time also means facing tasks, in other words, you have to live a high-risk ninja career ahead of time. He doesn't want to die. Although 300,000 bonus points are tempting, Hyuga Setsuna just wants to get through the most difficult period smoothly now. As long as he can grow up smoothly, even for a few more years, and at the same time improve his attributes through hard training, sooner or later he will accumulate enough reward points and enough strength to raise the banner of rebellion against the clan. So don't rush this moment. What's more, he still doesn't know much about ninjas. Wouldn't it be better if he could really learn something in school? So Hyuga Setsuna has already made up his mind. He will not participate in Kakashi's affairs, let him be some kind of genius by himself. How many so-called geniuses died young? Only by surviving and living for a long time is the kingly way. Kakashi on the
वीडियोस बनाने हैं, फिल्मोरा है ना।